Welcome to another edition of Jazz Smack post-game, where the Jazz went into Memphis and gave the Grizzlies one heck of a game. With the full complement of players out there, a full roster of guys, the Jazz are more than capable of playing much better basketball than they have this season. I mean, that's obvious to everybody. They've been in a tank mode all year. Had they played all their guys and not sat multiple of their veteran players for multiple games, they're sitting Walker, they're sitting Lauri, they're sitting John Collins, they're sitting Sexton. I mean, they're sitting all these guys for obvious reason, and that is to facilitate losses. Had they played all these guys, they are in a much better position in terms of record, and they certainly aren't the worst team in the West. There's no way the Jazz are the worst team in the West just based on their talent. They could be a lot better and a lot more competitive than they've been. That's plain as day. I think if you were to go around and ask, like, the GMs if the Jazz could be more competitive if they weren't trying to facilitate losses, I guarantee pretty much all of them would say absolutely. I mean, the Jazz can compete with their current guys. They just can't compete for a title, so they're in on the tank trying to get ping pong balls. That's the idea. That's the strategy that Ainge has employed. That's why he traded Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell for a bunch of draft picks and a facilitate traded for other players who have certainly helped, like Mike Conley, like Kelly Olynyk. I mean, those guys were obviously helpful players, and there were others. And Ainge has continued to trade these guys to try and build draft assets and to try and facilitate losses in the short term to try and give themselves a better opportunity in the lottery. But tonight, the team played great. Overall, the team played great. There was one exception to that, and that's obviously Jordan Clarkson. I don't know why he's playing again. I don't know if the league fining the Jazz $100,000 for sitting Lauri, and is that also going to include the Jazz are forced to play Jordan Clarkson now? If that's the case, that would absolutely be terrible from the point of view of the Jazz fan base, because watching Jordan Clarkson at this point is not helpful. It's not helpful for the development of the other young players on the Jazz, and it's not helpful for habit forming for the other players on the team, because Jordan has all sorts of terrible habits. I like Jordan the person, and we keep reiterating this. Jordan the person is not the problem. Jordan the basketball player is the problem. So I sincerely hope that the league is not forcing the Jazz to play Jordan Clarkson, that this fine doesn't kind of nudge the Jazz into playing Jordan more minutes and more games. That would stink. We still have a number of games left, nearly 20, and I don't want to watch Jordan, and I know a whole bunch of other people don't want to watch Jordan. He was a low point for tonight. He went 3 for 10 from the field. He had 5 turnovers, 2 assists. I mean, he was just bad. And it's not helpful to the team for development purposes. I guess you could say, well, if it weren't for Jordan, the Jazz would have won the game, and that's also not good for the Jazz, where they currently sit fighting for, one of those 3 worst records. And I would agree with that. If Jordan hadn't played tonight, the Jazz might actually win this game. And that would not be as good as well. I mean, we can't afford to win a game in Memphis right now. As much as I would like to see the Jazz go ahead and win some of these games, I mean, at this point in the season, considering what the Jazz have done to get to this point, to be one of the 3 worst teams, to go ahead and win any games at this point is, I mean, that is just not a smart strategy. And that would just, after sitting through this long season and watching these games, and some of these games have been brutal, we do not need wins right now. We just need to go ahead and facilitate losses the rest of this year. And I don't know what the Jazz are going to do in terms of the league trying to force them to play their best players, but they just can't. I mean, if they have to go through a bunch of $100,000 fines, they've got to go through a bunch of $100,000 fines. They can't afford to screw this up at this point, regardless of what the league does. So anyway, it was a heck of a game tonight, and I'm so happy for the guys that they competed hard. I mean, Collin Sexton was great. And I'm happy to see Collin in the game and playing big minutes. I mean, he's so enthusiastic and plays so hard. And the whole Morant thing towards the end of the game was just clearly Morant's a clown. I mean, that was a joke. Collin did absolutely nothing wrong. He was playing Pippen, and Pippen went in. He made a play on the ball, and Pippen went into him, and it pushed him into the pathway of Morant underneath the basket. And Collin was just standing there. He did absolutely nothing. And Morant, to be quite honest, it's easy to bully a 15-year-old kid from your neighborhood, but it's a whole nother story with Collin Sexton, because if you try and get into Collin Sexton's going to rip your heart out. You don't want to do that. That's just not a smart thing for your health if you try and get into it with Collin and actually get in a fight. So, yeah, Morant's all talk, other than when he's bullying and assaulting a 15-year-old from his neighborhood. But that's a whole nother story. That's Morant for you. That's who he is. That's who he's displayed himself to be, unfortunately. The most athletic guy in the NBA, and that's who he is. But overall, let's look at the box score tonight and actually see what transpired with the team and how it went. And like I said, let's start with Collin. Collin was great again. 9 for 7. He plays 30 minutes. He goes 9 for 17 from the field, 3 for 5 from the free throw line, 8 rebounds, 7 assists, 4 turnovers, 22 points. He played a really good game. And his starting backcourt mate, I also thought, played a decent game, but Collier tonight did have a lot of turnovers. 7 turnovers against 6 assists. That's a lot of turnovers. It just is. There's no doubt that one of the reasons why the Jazz lost tonight was they committed 23 turnovers against 24 assists. And obviously, basically a 1-to-1 assist-to-turnover ratio is a really poor ratio. And that 24 assists on 42 made field goals, although that's not a terrible number, that's not a great number either. So any way you look at it, it wasn't a great night for the Jazz with turnovers and passing the ball. But overall, I thought Collin and Isaiah held their own. Collin is obviously his attitude, his competitiveness, it's infectious, it's fun to watch. He is that guy. He's always been that guy. He was that guy at Alabama, and he's the same guy today, more or less. He's just 100% all the time, intense. And Collin was great tonight. This is why I think Collin, seriously, I think the Jazz are going to try and move him, and I think they'll probably try and move him this offseason. But Collin should have value to other teams. The Jazz should be able to get a decent draft pick in return for Collin. And if they don't, I'm not a fan of trading him. I want Collin to be in a different place just because I think it's best for Collin. And I think it's probably best for the Jazz too, since they are such on a youth focus right now. And I think it's best for both parties. But again, I don't think the Jazz should give Collin away. I don't think he's too good to just give him away. He's clearly too good, and he's clearly over all of his injury issues. The knee injury that he suffered in Cleveland, he's obviously past that. He's fully healthy, and he's capable of putting up some good numbers with high efficiency. And I don't think the Jazz should give him away. But we'll see what happens in this offseason, because I think there's a really good chance that he's elsewhere. And being elsewhere, where Collin could slide in next to a bigger point guard, where he could play 2 guard at his height, I think that would be the best case for Collin. Right now, obviously, Collin and Collier are a very height-challenged backcourt, to say the least. So that's not a great pairing. It just isn't. Just from a defensive standpoint, where one of those 2 guys is going to have to cover a 2 guard, and they're going to be really disadvantaged. Because anybody they're going to be guarding is going to be taller. It's just the reality of their physical makeup. So both those guys in the backcourt, starting backcourt, it's not the best pairing. Collin would be much better next to a bigger point guard where he could play 2 guard. But because he's not Collin's not a natural point guard. That's not his strength. It never was his strength. It never will be his strength. So anyway, Collin was great tonight. The 22 points, 7 assists, 8 rebounds. Fantastic. And Walker tonight also. Walker had a great game. I mean, he made huge impact on the defensive end. I mean, he was all over the place. And the 14 rebounds on 4 for 5 shooting, 5 assists, 2 steals, 6 blocks. I mean, yes, he only scored 9 points, but his impact was far greater than that 9 points represents, clearly. I mean, he was the defensive player of this game, without question. I mean, he clearly outplayed Edey, and he was great. Absolutely great. And John Collins, again, really nice game. No assists, but he shot the ball really well from the field. 8 for 12, 5 for 7 from free throw line, 7 rebounds, and he scores 22 points as well. So he and Collin tied for the high scoring, and he shot the ball really well. And unfortunately for John, but maybe fortunately for the team, John he rolled that ankle pretty good. He rolled it on Brandon Clark's foot. He landed on Brandon Clark's foot when he was going to the basket, and he rolled over that pretty good. I would be surprised if he doesn't sit out some time just to try and get that ankle back to 100%, because I'm actually kind of shocked that he didn't exit the game and stay out of the game, because he rolled it over. I mean, that was a good enough rollover that there's certainly going to be some swelling there, and I'd be shocked if he didn't sit some time, because that's a legitimate case where the Jazz can say, well, look, I mean, you're not going to fine us $100,000 for John Collins sitting out because he clearly just rolled his ankle. So I assume that the Jazz are going to take advantage of that and sit him out. But Lauri hasn't played in a long time. So him being out of rhythm, I mean, he obviously hasn't shot the ball particularly well this year. And again, he was 3 for 9 on threes tonight, 5 for 14 overall. I mean, his percentages are way down. But at least he played some minutes tonight. And the Jazz are playing in Memphis against obviously a good Memphis team. And this is a good opportunity for all the guys to play. Notwithstanding, you just take the $100,000 fine out of it, all the guys playing, because there's an opportunity for all the guys to play and still likely get a loss. Now, the Jazz made it really competitive, and they certainly could have pulled this game out. But on the other hand, they were able to play all their guys. Unfortunately, Jordan Clarkson played, so they lost. If Jordan Clarkson hadn't played tonight and hadn't played so poorly, the Jazz very likely win this game. So it's good to see Lauri in the lineup. It's good to see Collin in the lineup. Good to see Walker in the lineup. That starting lineup is the starting lineup that I would prefer to see the rest of the season. If the Jazz are forced to play players, that's the lineup that I'd prefer to see. I definitely do not want Jordan Clarkson in the starting lineup. I mean, he played way too many minutes tonight. I'm still upset about that. I just don't see how that is helping the team. But anyway, so the downside of all those guys being back, though, is really the lack of development by the young Jazz players. I mean, they just don't get a chance again. I mean, Kyle Filipowski is now getting 16 minutes tonight. Cody Williams got big minutes, and he actually played reasonably well. He didn't have a lot of points, but he did other things in the box score. So Cody had 6 rebounds in 27 minutes and had 1 steal and 1 block. He didn't have any assists, but 1 steal, 1 block, and 6 rebounds, 2 of those offensive boards. So yes, he doesn't get a lot of points, but the 2 for 5 from the field, 5 points, and the 6 rebounds, 1 steal and 1 block. Those are decent numbers. The 1 steal and 1 block for somebody his size in 27 minutes, that's not a bad number. That's a decent number. And the 6 rebounds is obviously really good. That's really helpful to see, because Cody's had a lot of games where he just hasn't had a single rebound. So that's one of the things we've kept on talking about where Cody needs to improve. He needs to improve his rebounding. He's big enough where he should be able to get rebounds. He just lacks the strength, and he's not going after the ball hard. Because if you're his size, even with the lack of strength, you got to come up with a rebound or two every single game at the very least. Even when you're playing 15 minutes a game, you've got to get something in the rebounds. You have to. But let's go on to Kyle. So Kyle tonight, I mean, the 16 minutes, I mean, that's the problem with the other guys playing. Because Kyle has been playing well, and now he's back to playing less. And the more that Kyle plays right now, the better it helps the Jazz for next year and the year after that. Kyle needs the experience. He needs the on-court time. He's played well enough to deserve that on-court time. And he still put up good numbers tonight. In 16 minutes, the 3 for 7, 3 for 4 from the free throw line, 8 rebounds, 3 assists. I mean, 9 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists. I mean, those are really solid numbers, and nearly shooting 50%. Yes, he was one made field goal away from 50%. And he shot a 3 tonight that didn't hit anything but the glass, and obviously that was a really poor shot. But overall, tonight was another positive night for Kyle, other than he just didn't get enough time to put up better numbers. And let's go on to Bryce now, too, with Jordan Clarkson coming back and getting all these minutes, 24 minutes for Jordan. Bryce ends up with 16 and a half minutes. And he goes 4 for 9 from the field, 3 for 5 on 3. But he still has 3 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 block, and he scores 11 points. And Bryce played a good game again. Yet, here he is not getting enough minutes because Jordan Clarkson is taking minutes away from the developing players. And we all know that that is not a positive for the team. This is what is frustrating. It just is. And I hate to keep on harping on this, but it's just infuriating. Why are you subjecting the fan base to this? We know you're tanking this season. Just don't play Clarkson. I mean, I don't care if the league fines the Jazz. I mean, just take the fine, but just don't play him. Buy him out. Do something. Just do something. If you buy him out, buy him out. I mean, yes, he has another year on his contract, but so what? He's not helping the development of the younger players. And it's just frustrating. I just wish the Jazz were in a better place on this in terms of Jordan and playing time. But anyway, the other thing is this fine that the Jazz received from the NBA for not playing Lauri, for sitting him without reason, according to the league apparently. I mean, $100,000 for that is pathetic because the inconsistencies with the way that the NBA implements these fines, because there's a whole bunch of teams tanking. There's a whole bunch of teams that have tanked in the past, and the way that the league is issuing these fines to teams is completely arbitrary. I mean, if you want to, you need to change the incentive structure of the NBA. You're rewarding teams for losing. That's the problem. You need to penalize teams for losing. The worst teams should not have an opportunity to even get the top draft picks. That should be what the league does. If you're so bad and you're bad year after year, which some of these teams are, like Washington, I mean, you should be penalized from that. You just shouldn't be rewarded from that year after year after year. You're rewarded for it with high draft choices. Now, has it helped the Washington Wizards win games? No. But the incentive structure is just completely screwed up. There should be absolutely no incentive structure in place where teams are trying to lose games like the Jazz are doing. That is just wrong. And it stinks for the fans. It stinks for everybody involved. And Adam Silver is he is the one responsible for this mess that's been created. It's his decision. He could change this, yet he doesn't. And this has been ongoing for a long time. And there have been teams that have been tanking for certain players, like San Antonio for Wemby. I mean, it's just sick. I mean, it's just morally wrong. But the Jazz are forced to do it, and other teams are forced to do it because that's the structure that's in place. And it's just stupid. But anyway, I can't do anything about it. I mean, other than sit here and complain about it like a whole bunch of other people. I mean, the NBA has all sorts of issues right now, and that's why viewership is way down. And this is just one of the ones that could be easily addressed. They don't do it for whatever reason. Adam Silver refuses to do anything about it. So here we are, again, year after year, teams trying to lose, and now the Jazz are in that situation. The Jazz blew the previous 2 years of tanking, just totally screwed that up. But this year, they're all in. It's obvious. So hopefully the league just leaves them alone and lets them close out this year with another basically 20 losses for the most part. Because that's what the Jazz are looking at with how many games are left in the season, 18, 17, whatever it is. They're going to lose. They're going to lose most every one of those games. They have to. They can't win. It's just out of the question. Even if the league finds them, they can't win those games. Period. But anyway, those are my thoughts for the night after watching a game. And this was a great game. If you haven't seen this game yet, and you have like League Pass and it's recorded, or if you have Seg Plus for those in Utah, I mean, go ahead and watch the game. And if you did watch it, rewatch it, because this is one of the ones that was actually exciting to see, because the full Jazz lineup was in there. They played well. It was competitive on the road with a really good team. And the Jazz have been playing, obviously, closer games as of late. I mean, even these road games against good teams, they were close in Boston. Yes, the Celtics didn't play without Tatum, but still, the Jazz played a team with a lot of their best players. I mean, Porzingis didn't play as well, but there was enough talent on Boston that making that game competitive was impressive. It really was. And this, too, was an entertaining game. And I'm going to try and rewatch this game when I have a chance, because I was thoroughly entertained other than the Clarkson minutes, and I will just fast forward through all those minutes that Jordan Clarkson played tonight. So maybe I'll end up watching about half the game, considering that Jordan did play half the game. But anyway, those are my personal thoughts on tonight and the ridiculousness of the NBA finding the Jazz, and the clown Morant talking all the crap to Sexton, which is just laughable. But anyway, I hope that everybody has a great night, and I really hope that you, for those watching on YouTube, that you like, share, and subscribe. For those on X, please follow us. And I sincerely hope that everybody has a great rest of your evening and tomorrow. And we will talk to everybody after the next game.